I'll do the donk.
Like
Just
we
brother and sister
I will
hang out.
follow your Donk.
Yeah, chatting about media. Lol.
No!
Donk.
Report!
Are they different? Okay.
Oh,
Hello?
fuck, actually, I'm not ready. Just kidding. Hi. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
We're doing a serious podcast about media criticism.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. I've actually been thinking about media a lot in the last while. Like
Okay.
this year, kind of. I think
Cool.
it's got potential.
I think it's got some problems at the moment.
Yeah, on the whole, I'm not for it. Like, I think media, I mean, like, say everything is media, right? Like we use the air to, oi,
There he is.
to transmit sound and shit. Like, the world is a medium that we use to communicate with each other. And that can either be like Maya, like something that takes away from your consciousness, or you can use it to lead people back to consciousness. And I think that about the internet too, you know, like social media and shit.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just the way like platforms like Instagram and shit are set up just feels a bit like intentionally making people get out of themselves and be stuck in the story or whatever of media.
Yeah. It's become less human, more AI, which I think is not doing what we need. Hold on 1 second. I can't turn your volume up. You're quite quiet. Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Maybe my mic angle is off. You can't turn your headphones up.
No, if I turn it up on my computer, it says it's going up and then it's not.
How about now?
Hold on, speak again.
Hi.
Hi. I don't know. I can hear you. I'll just have to. I don't know.
Hope everyone can hear me.
Well, I can hear you. I don't think the problem's you.
I mean, it could be my mic sensitivity when the receiver thing is not saying I'm super loud or anything. I'll automatically adjust microphone volume. Maybe I'll turn that off. How about now?
Yeah.
Does that change at all?
You're a little bit louder, I think. It's more just weird that like I'm turning the volume up on my computer and it's not making you louder.
How about now?
Same.
Same. How about now?
Same.
Okay.
This is great content.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this is why you came here, everyone. Should we start again?
Okay, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. Just don't even worry about it. I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I've really fallen into a hole of being on my phone all the time, which is bad. But they really set it up so it's easy, you know?
Yeah, and it sends you the content that you want to see, and it tickles your kind of algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah, I've definitely found that as I'm like absorbed in a big project that takes most of my energy and focus, that I'm more inclined to be like, okay, well now I'm just gonna spend time on my phone or my downtime.
Yeah.
Which is kind of bullshit.
Totally. I'm like, oh, I'm too tired to read like a book that needs brain power. So then I was like, oh, just reread Harry Potter. And then with like printing, Donk got even more busy and tired and was like, I don't even have energy to read Harry Potter, lol. And then just on my phone all the time. But then it just makes you feel bad, eh? Like it doesn't give you anything.
Yeah,
Or
it's
like
like a
what it
false
gives me
promise.
isn't, yeah, like what I get from it isn't worthwhile. Like it's not worth my time to
Yeah,
like accidentally become invested in all these people's lives who I don't know and actually like it doesn't matter and I don't care about. Like they're not people who are like inspiring me. They're just people
we can
who
gossip
I've
about.
somehow, yeah, pretty much. It's like the
Yeah,
new
well,
version of those like shit magazines that they have at hairdressers and stuff.
when did you get a smartphone? Like, how old were you?
It was my first year of uni, so I would have been 18.
Yeah, see, I was like 22. So, like,
Mm.
I
Oh,
didn't have a smartphone all this time that I was growing up. We had like TV and we had like MSN chat and shit.
lol.
And then there was like
I had,
MySpace and Bebo in high school, but you couldn't be on it all the time. You go and check it. It was actually like an activity.
yeah, I had that. I actually had an iPod Touch in high school, so I could get on the school's Wi-Fi and like do
Oh
some of it at
no.
school. But that wasn't the culture.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't what was going on. And I still remember, like, when I went on that trip to Italy when I was 15, I took a phone with buttons and had to take like a separate camera because that's what the times were.
Hmm.
And I remember one of the houses I stayed at, they were like, would you like to use the computer? And I had to like go use Tumblr and Facebook on their computer, their like family computer.
I
So
know it's
different.
stupid to say it in hindsight because like, everything's better with the benefit of hindsight. But like I just think like the limitation was a good thing. And there was like I mean, like obviously technology keeps getting better in all ways. And like the whole point of technology is to solve problems. So if we get to a point where we're having too much of a problem with how social media is, then like ideally new technology will crop up to solve that problem.
Yeah,
But also like I think it just had quite a good balance in the late 90s, early 2000s, where like there was
definitely.
connectivity and there, but it wasn't all consuming.
I noticed this a lot because I do nannying. I really have noticed that like um the way kids watch TV nowadays is so different because like
It's like they're plugged into it, eh?
yeah, and like TV when we were kids, there was ads. There was these like enforced breaks in your TV watching. And because you weren't like streaming shit, you like would watch the TV show you wanted to watch and it lasted probably 30 minutes and then something else was on.
Mm.
So either then you turned it off or you like watched a different thing. You couldn't do the thing kids do now where they get lost in the world of like the same TV show because the next episode just plays. It's so different.
Yeah, well, I think there's a real difference. I really don't like streaming platforms, including like music and shit. Like I've kind of like I'm compromising and using them now because they're like the thing, but because there's no limitation, like on the TV, you just have to choose out of what's on. So, but
Mm,
so even if there's like 30 channels, there's only going to be like one or two where you really want to watch something, or probably even
yeah.
none of them you really want to watch it, but like you settle for something. And I think that's actually like a really good thing. It makes you accept certain things the way they are. Like it gives you practice accepting things. And it
Yeah.
also exposes you to things that you wouldn't necessarily watch out of preference. And like with Netflix and shit, or even like Amazon, buying shit on Amazon or whatever,
Yeah.
you just spend fucking hours like searching for the best thing. And if you know that
Yeah.
there's only 20 options or 10 options, then it only takes a minute to find the best thing.
Totally.
And like I
I
felt the same
know.
about secondhand. I mean, that's why I like secondhand shopping too, but also, like Real Groovy in New Zealand,
Mm.
or like the video store when that existed. You just go there and
Yes.
you just find, you'd probably only look in one or two sections. And
When there was
then
a oh
now you
there's a human you could talk to. Like it's
true.
like going to the library and you can be like, I liked this book, can you recommend something?
Mm,
Whereas like Amazon, it's like
recommend
some
everything.
AI bullshit that's like, yeah, and it's like not that I really use Amazon or anything, but I swear it's like, oh, you liked this book that had a blue cover with a white shape on it. Do you want this book that's a blue cover with a white shape on it? And it's like, no.
Yeah, or like you liked Harry
Like,
Potter, you must like this other kid's fantasy. And it's like, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean they're anything like each other.
I know. I know. I find that so frustrating because, like, I've fallen into that as well of like, oh, well, just Google, like, rather than go to a bookshop or a library, I'll just see if I can Google, like, what's a book similar to this one that I loved.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it so is not recommending what I'm looking for. Like, if I loved a book about, like, that, like, happens to be set during the First World War or something, that doesn't mean that I only want to read books set in the First World War.
Yeah.
Like, that means that there was a vibe about that story that I really liked, that I'm looking for that vibe,
Yeah.
Which I think of streaming and platforms, I think like Spotify or like music recommendations are the only ones that I think actually are quite good. Like
Sure.
that's the only thing that I quite appreciate, the new way of doing things rather than the old way. Because the old way was like, I don't know, like I had to either like download all my music or like go to the library and get it out on CD and then go home and put it on my computer and then put it on my iPods. And it just meant that your reach was actually way more limited to like what people you knew liked.
Yeah. I think that is a good thing about like especially in this kind of age of internet music where there's all these people making music and just putting it online. Like I think
Yeah.
that has been a really good thing, though maybe we're not at like an ideal point with it yet. But I kind of agree. Like I've found some cool stuff on like Spotify or YouTube Music or whatever that I wouldn't have found otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, but who knows? Like
Yeah.
if we didn't have this hyper convenient system, we might have developed more social mechanisms for sharing information or something. But with
Yeah, totally.
TV, I guess it is quite hard to like not quantify, but kind of like measure the vibe of something, or with movies
Yeah.
and shit. Like we got real into Buffy right last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm gonna watch other vampire shows. Like
No, totally.
that had a quality to it that really just worked, and it was almost despite it being a vampire show.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
I
because
find that
there's
with
all
a lot
these
of
like
things, like I've tried to find stuff that would kind of give me what June gave me in books,
yeah.
not in movies. Everyone can find that fucking anywhere, but like yeah, and I've gone and talked to people at like a bunch of different bookstores, like
Well,
people who really know books. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
I want something like June. I'm really interested in this part of June. And I'm like, go real into like why I'm interested in June. And they're like, how about this? And it's just like another fucking sci-fi story set
Yeah.
in the future or something. Like it's nothing to do with, but I guess that's subjective. Like maybe
Well, and
you
also
can't
I think
communicate that.
yeah, and I think there's like two levels of recommendation, and one is that like surface level plot based recommending, oh, you liked this adventure, maybe you'll like this one. And then there's like, sorry, what?
No, I don't understand that at all. Like
Oh, okay.
recommending things that way.
Yeah, no, neither. But I think that is how a lot of recommendations, I think, I wonder if that's what people think you're asking for when you're asking for a recommendation.
The
But
same
I'm
story
not.
again.
Like, I've tried to find or like Google on the internet here's a list of books that like topically and plot wise are not related at all, but they both made me feel the same way. What else can I read that will make me feel this way? And the internet, and even I asked on Reddit as well, because I was like, oh, that's real people, maybe that will be better. Nah, people don't get it. They're like, oh, well, if you liked this book because it's about Greek mythology, it's like, no, I don't care about the context of what the book made me feel so much as I'm looking for that, you know?
Yeah, well, ultimately, I think what stories and even like, yeah, well, maybe more so stories than, say, like nonfiction, especially like theoretical stuff, give us is like a structure. Like, there's a structure kind of embedded in the story. And it's like, like dreams, like it triggers certain releases of meaning or whatever that we're looking for. And I'm sure there's a way to map that or document that, but our kind of conception of fiction hasn't quite, like that's what like Freud and Jung and Joseph Campbell and shit are talking about, right? But it
That's what
hasn't
I was just gonna
necessarily
say.
caught on in the mainstream.
No, but that's kind of what that book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, is about. Whoa! Sorry, Pan just caught a butterfly just above me. Lol. Getting a bit distracted. Is that like every story has these like archetypes.
Yeah.
And
#Jung.
#Jung. And teaching you that you can like look at any story as the story of a single psyche. Like, yeah, what she's using is like folk stories, but I think it's probably applicable to anything, is that like the antagonist is representing something in the psyche, you know, and all the characters are playing a role.
Well, they also represent like a collective psyche in a way, right? Especially folk stories.
Yeah.
They kind of like represent local collective consciousness or collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was such a cool book.
Maybe I'll read
Good
it
one.
sometime.
It's real cool. I think it's probably like perceived as a like feminist text, which it is, but also it's not like exclusively, you know, like she very much is talking about, I guess, like the feminine psyche, but she's really like, you know, this isn't about your sex, your body, let's not get into it, but like there's these aspects within everyone, and it's about like exploring them and coming at it with this feminine energy, you know?
Yeah, well, the kind of feminine side has been lacking in everyone in a way in the last like 100 years or more. And I think that's the really valuable thing about that kind of generally Jungian approach, is that like, even not just in stories, but like in your life.
Yeah.
The story that you're living in is your own creation. Like, it's the way that you put this like sea of information into a structure. And that's what projection is, like if there's an enemy, like a villain in your life, that's you creating a structure and putting them into that place because you need that. That's the story that you're looking for in your life.
Yeah.
But I think that's really valuable for all this stuff about like body and gender and identity and shit as well. That like everything is inside you and everyone has all the parts. We're just arranging them in different ways. And so like, of course, everyone has feminine in them and masculine in them and all these other different archetypes, because they are the way that, I mean, like when unity breaks down into multiplicity, it breaks down into these archetypes everywhere in the world. And those are the different things that we need to integrate into our own psyche in order to become whole again or whatever. So being like, I am this and you're that is moving away from your own internal
Yeah.
unity and integration.
When I think that like denial of everyone having like the feminine and the masculine within them is like what we're now realizing was the mistake of like second wave feminism of like, well, women can do whatever men do. It's like, yeah, but really we should have been fighting for recognition of like women's work, you know, that like staying home and keeping the home and making or like educating and raising the children is equally, if not more important than having a job, you know?
Yeah, it's just become all about having a job and like what your career means and shit, which is like,
I know, and being like a boss bitch, and it's like, no.
well, you know, it's like, sure, like there's gonna be women who want that, and there's gonna be men who
Yeah,
want that, and there's gonna be women and men who want to be in the home and like make the home the
absolutely.
center of their life. And like I think that, you know, like, you know, we share a lot of content on Instagram,
Lol.
and like one of our kind of sub themes recently has been this kind of like Christian revival or whatever.
Yeah, lol.
And like all this stuff about like let's just go back to the Bible and like a man has got to be this and a woman's got to be that. It's just like I think there's useful information in there to learn from, but I don't think it means that like we just need to maintain that at all costs and that's the only way to have a stable society. Like I think it's
No.
like the way that Jung breaks it down into these kind of qualities of energy or qualities of personality that we should
Yeah,
actually all have a balance of makes a
yeah,
lot more sense because like, well, firstly, we don't live in a hunter-gatherer society anymore. So like
yeah.
there's no need for like there to be a specific group of people who are like the protectors of the tribe or whatever, or the protectors of the village at this point
Mm.
anyway. But like, you know, and I don't have any problem with men being like, well, I'm just the man and I just want to do boy stuff because like that's cool too. But
Yeah,
like it's like these videos of people watching like um well watching another video of me like that's wrong because it says in the Bible that a man should be like this and shit. It's like you're just limiting yourself. You're just keeping yourself more divided and separate and like withholding potential from yourself if you
yeah,
that you could unlock like you could unlock a more dynamic masculinity if you accept the feminine parts of yourself and vice versa.
yeah. It's real stupid.
Yeah. Anyway, in our like back to our conversation about old media, I think that's partly why I'm so obsessed with like watching old TV shows as well, because they like remind me of this era
Yeah,
where like I don't know, like it felt more contained, like media felt more contained, and now everything's like exploded, and there's like it takes a lot of effort to be contained or something.
yeah. I think, yeah, I mainly think that too. I think a lot of stuff makes what, in my opinion, is the mistake of like being too culturally relevant, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm watching, I don't know, for example, like Doctor Who, like I watched the new season of Doctor Who as it was coming out because I was like, oh, maybe it'll be fun. And I just don't need my TV show about like a space alien and space traveling to be like super woke, you know? Like, I don't care if it's like background diversity sort of stuff, like fine, whatever. But if like the point of every episode is to have this like moralistic lesson about what life in 2024 is like on planet Earth, like that's not why I'm watching a TV show about like an alien traveling space, you know?
And time.
And time. that's not what I'm there for. And I'm sure some people are, but I'm not.
Well, you know, like I think if you want to have a show that's specifically about that, it should be about that.
Yeah.
Rather than having it like kind of infiltrate everything. And
Yeah.
like this is probably going to be taken the wrong way. But like I don't think the point is saying it explicitly anyway. Like what it
That's
doesn't
what
matter
I
what you
think.
say. Like anyone that this is also my issue with like the way not the pervasiveness itself of like this kind of attitude, but like the way that it's pervaded culture is that like you have to say like you have to prove yourself at
Yeah.
all times that like I'm a feminist or I'm like anti-racist or whatever. And
Yeah.
like that's irrelevant to me. Anyone can say that. Anyone can like, you know, virtual signal about how much they think it's important for women to get equal pay or like whatever.
Yeah.
But like it's it's completely irrelevant what you say. It's what you do, and it's the dynamics that you establish in your life through your behavior and through, you know, but by extension through the dynamics and the behaviors in a TV show. You know, like it would be like, you know, you don't imagine Doctor Who anyway, like going around and being like, "Hey, I'm gonna pick up a black slave or something." You know,
Yeah.
like he's from the fucking future or whatever. Like
I know.
he knows way more than you about being woke or whatever.
Yeah. I know. It is that thing of like, if it's the subtext or like it's a part of the just like the fabric of the world in which these episodes are set,
Hmm.
yeah, fine, whatever. Like that's just kind of moving with the times. Fine. But yeah, like when you're having to spell out in every single episode, it doesn't feel like it feels like virtue signaling of like, well, we're a good TV show
So you
because
should watch us. Don't cancel me.
yeah, which is just like boring, you know?
I think if you're making a TV show and like you don't have you know, this kind of like identity politics attitude,
Mm,
woke virtue signaling attitude innately, or like no, well, no, leave virtue signaling out of it. But like, say you kind of, if you were just gonna automatically, or you know, like without pretension, write a story, and in your
yeah,
head, when you're imagining it, all the characters are white and they're all straight and they're all kind of like middle of the road or a bit right leaning, whatever. I think it's more valuable to the spirit of social progress to just write that show as who you are and it be there to be critiqued and to be seen as a sign of where we're actually at in terms of our understanding of cultural
yeah,
progress and cultural diversity than it is to pretend that you're about diversity when you're not, you know? And like I
yeah,
also like I'm like deeply about diversity. Let me just do a bit of
yeah,
virtue signaling. like so much so that I am against a bunch of the way people are doing it because I don't think it really represents real diversity.
nah,
Uh,
it's this like, oh,
but
sorry,
I think part of that is that not everyone has to be about diversity. That's part of diversity for me. You know,
yeah,
like if you're right wing, if you're like racist or something, I don't agree. But like I think that that's your right. Or like if that's where you're at, you know, it's a kind of psychological limitation. But like
yeah,
me berating you about it and being like you're a fucking idiot because you think that like white people are better than black people or whatever is only gonna make them feel more fucked up about it and
yeah,
like probably just make them think about like come up with more reasons why they're right or something.
yeah.
And I just think it's so much more valuable to let people have different views and let there be discourse about it rather than trying to get everyone to have the same view. That's fucked up.
When making it about this like fitting your imaginary story or whatever into this like established structure or framework of like necessary diversity. Like, oh, I must have someone with a physical disability. I must have like people with this and that, you know? It's like, well, that's not real. You're just ticking the boxes.
Yeah.
And like, that's not you developing or, yeah, like a representation of where we're at. It's just like, oh, if I want to be able to like make a season beyond this, I can't get cancelled, so I have to put in someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I think
It's like,
it's centralization, right? Like if everyone is kind of trying to be, like make it. So like be on the main
yeah,
TV channel or the main streaming platform or whatever. And that makes people conform to this like popular narrative or popular
mm.
approach or whatever. But like I think that's also, shit being centralized is also why media is so fucking boring now. Like not that
That's
it
what I was
wasn't.
just gonna say. Like, you're watering down everything and you're putting it through this filter. And it's not even a filter of like, oh, well, let's put in more diversity. It's like, oh, well, I'm having to think in these frameworks alongside just thinking of a cool story and writing a cool story.
Mm,
So like your focus is split rather than like just coming up with something cool that people can relate to, you know,
mm.
or be excited by. But yeah, shit nowadays is all the same. It's all so boring.
I just don't engage. Like I haven't seen any of the Marvel movies. I haven't seen any of like
Oh,
the only two movies I've seen. I think I've maybe seen like four new movies in the last like 5 years, but maybe even 10 years or something. It's like
yeah.
Poor Things and Perfect Days, and there's a couple
Yeah,
other
but
random
there's
ones.
people doing cool stuff. And it's people like Yogos who are making real weird shit. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like I've seen the new Dune movies. Like, they're fun. They were a fun way to spend a couple hours, but like they are missing the whole point of the Dune books, you know?
And
Or like the
making a
depth.
movie, like, I mean, everyone talks about how there's so many remakes like in the last 10 years or
Yeah.
whatever as well. Like Disney remaking its own cartoons into like hyper realistic digital
Yeah, but
animations and
that's so
shit.
they can
Oh
maintain,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
But like
Anyway,
all these other remakes and shit too, it's like, why are you making? What drives you to make a movie if you don't have this like desire in you to create that's so strong that you can't do anything else, you know? Like, why are you
yeah.
making a movie if you're just gonna make someone else's story?
For money, for clout, for dumb reasons, not like you can so see the difference as well. Like I think like you can see the difference in big famous directors now from like their early stuff that does seem to be like creatively driven.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, like Wes Anderson and like Quentin Tarantino. I feel like their early movies were so cool and like interesting.
Because they had something to say,
Yeah.
and now they're
And then
just a
either
brand.
they, yeah, exactly. They like, I don't know, I feel like often they go one of two ways. And one is that they become a brand, which is like Wes Anderson, his like, he's carved out this niche for himself that now, like, that is all he does. Like, his movies aren't about anything anymore, they're just like aesthetic.
I haven't
Or
seen any of
like,
the recent ones.
no, I stopped watching them after a while because I was like, these aren't good anymore. Your early movies were so good. And like, I still love those movies, but you've lost the thread or something.
Well, I do think
Or,
like people really have something to say, or like artists really have something to say,
mm,
especially when they're young, and that's why they're so motivated to make stuff, even if they don't have the resources. They're like, fucking do it
yeah,
anyway. And like, I think that kind of also shows us that it's not the resources that are important, or even like the quality, or like,
nah,
the standard. It's just the creativity is important because if you have fuck all resources, you're going to make something good anyway. Because
Yeah.
if you really got something to express, then you're going to find a way for it to come out. And I do kind of think that like I'm not going to say for anyone else or make any rules or anything, but like I kind of think that if you don't have something to say anymore, you should just stop making shit. And like you should go and do something else, like go into producing or something and like
Yeah.
support other people who really have something to say.
But you know, people say that like you stop aging at the age at which you get like super rich and famous, you know?
Huh.
So like all these directors and like, you know, various famous people, whatever. But like with directors, it's like you had something to say and you were saying it and it was really cool. And then people were listening, but then also giving you heaps of money. And then you stopped having anything to say. And now you're just like
But you've said it too.
saying the same thing.
You know,
Yeah.
like if you've
But you're
said
just
it,
like either making the same movie over and over again, or you're just doing dumb shit that now like no one relates to anymore. Like I feel that with like Quentin Tarantino's movies. I haven't seen any of the later ones.
yeah, neither.
But from what I've heard, it's like he'll make like a 4-hour movie about some bullshit, but have like all the big names in it. So it's like a big deal. What a movie. And it's like, I don't fucking care. I don't
True.
care if you've got everyone in it, you know?
I was kind of thinking of watching some of his new movies. So maybe we should watch them and talk about it. But for me, it kind of dropped off around, I think, after Death Proof. Like Inglourious Bastards, I thought was the first kind of like average one. And it wasn't even
I actually
average.
haven't seen that.
It's still good, but like
Mm,
compared to like Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction, which I think were
mm,
his peak.
yeah. I
Like,
watched Django Unchained and I
yeah, I
was
only
like,
watched half of that.
okay.
Yeah, I think his earlier films were like super dynamic, and even though the stories
Yeah.
were quite like, he does this thing where he doesn't really give much away. Like, there's what's actually happening in the story is kind of just like referential to what's happening outside of the story.
Yeah.
It's like there's
Real,
so much happening outside the story that like these, even though not, I mean, what actually a lot happens, but like, but like, there just feels like there's a whole world happening. And then
yeah.
like the later ones, it kind of just feels like just a story,
Yeah.
like just one story.
Have you read any J.G. Ballard short stories?
No, I haven't read any ballads.
I haven't read any of his books, but I've read some of his short stories, and they're so cool because they're not like telling you what's going on. Here's the story. It's
Hmm.
like this is happening, and he doesn't tell you the world you're in. It's all sci-fi,
Hmm.
and then like you kind of get it by the end, but he's not like the setting is a world in which like it's just so much better, you know?
Yeah, I saw recently. I've been watching some clips from this Instagram where they just like ask people real like point blank questions about movies, like what's your favorite this or what was the most overrated movie. They often ask people what was like the most overrated movie, I don't know, this year or last couple of years or whatever. And someone said the Joker
Oh
because
yeah.
like um oh whatever, like that's not important why it
Okay.
was. But one of the things they said about it was that it has no subtext. Have you seen it?
Lol. Nah, I haven't. I wasn't gonna say that.
It was like everything they wanted to say in that movie was in the movie. There's no like there's no like plot outside of what they explicitly put. And I didn't watch the whole Joker but Jade was watching it while I was in the house, so I kind of caught bits
Yeah.
of it. And like
Lol.
I kind of saw what they meant by that. I was like,
That's real funny.
it's true. Like everything that happens in the movie, but it was like a really good way of putting it too, because That is a
Yeah.
really important thing about, and like Quentin Tarantino talks about that himself. He's like, I intentionally don't show you what's in the case or whatever, or like I don't
Yeah.
explain why. Like he said the thing about he doesn't explain why Brad Pitt has like a scar around his neck and shit. It's just there, but
Mm.
he knows why. But like the whole point is that when there's subtext, you have to fill it in yourself, so it like
Yeah.
personalizes it to you.
But also that's just like it's so unnatural to think that like the world is like how this person's saying it is in the Joker. Like that's not what life is like. Like you don't meet someone and you both tell each other your whole life story so you have context for who they are. You have to like piece it together over time or just like make assumptions based on their behavior, you know?
If you're even thinking about it.
Well, yes.
But
That's
that's
a
where we're
point.
at. Like that's the kind of state of meaning, or like that's kind of our worldview now, is that everything's explicit. Like that shows in
Yeah.
science too. Like it's like let's make everything explicit, and then and we're really bumping up the limitations of what you can make explicit or what's even valuable to make explicit, because
Yeah.
the whole way meaning plays out is in this tension between explicit and implicit.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's the whole woke thing too, is that like everything's got to be on the surface.
When everything has to be stated, and if you don't state it, that's stating it, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if I don't explicitly
If you're not for,
say,
you're against.
yeah, exactly. Which is so like time consuming, you know?
Well, yeah, like you've seen these videos where it's like I'm blah 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 blah, and
Here's
it's
my
like
personal essay.
as if that sums up your personality. Like you're a
I
whole
know.
universe, bro. Like you're a whole world of experiences and thoughts and feelings, and this whole
Yeah.
history, as if that can be summed up in like even 100 category names if you were to take it that far.
I know, but I think it's people trying to grapple with like how inexplicable it is to be a person, you know? They're like,
Yeah,
I want to feel connected to someone in some way. So maybe if I use these like signifiers, I can find someone who also uses these signifiers and then I'm not alone.
bro, I
And
think
it's
that's
like,
what they're
but you
getting
are
at.
alone. No one is like you.
No, but you're
And that's
exactly,
cool.
but you're
That's
unique.
like the magic.
You're unique, and you have your experience is irrevocably solitary, but it's in
Yeah.
that irrevocable solitude that we're together, because we're all that.
Well, that's so
Problem
cool,
solved.
man. That's so cool that you are alone. And like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's your life's journey or worth like figuring out how to communicate that, but not for everyone. Maybe you just like revel in how you see the world is how you see the world. And
Bro,
that's cool.
I think that's what they're getting at in The Lobster, where like to get married you have to have like something in common, like a
Yeah,
kind of
lol.
categorical thing in common with the other person. It's become this like robot society where everything's like
Yeah.
over structured or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, he's cool. Like, I really like his movies.
I want to watch
Like,
more of them.
I didn't really love The Killing of a Sacred Deer when I was watching it. But like I'm still like I still think about it.
Yeah.
I'm still like, oh yeah, Buzzy. He's cool, man. He's doing something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media has really like muddied the waters in terms of like traditional media. I think it's probably a really basic thing to say. But like I kind of think like more people should just independently make stuff. But then in saying that, everyone's fucking independently making shit, and
I
most of it
know.
sucks.
Everybody's a creator now. Everyone's a content creator.
I know the amount of people who are like not even very creative, and they spend their, or they even make a living like making fucking videos about Harry Potter or whatever. It's just
I
like, does the
know.
internet, does the world need this?
No, but the algorithm loves it.
Well, that's just a like a kind of exploded form of addiction though. Like the
Yeah,
algorithm is like
totally.
this like extension of personal addiction into like collective addiction.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think I need to get off Instagram.
Yeah, I have not really been on it today. I was like, I'm not going on Instagram today, apart from like messages, because that's different. But then you sent me like fucking 20 videos. It's like, then you still end up spending all this time on it. But it's nice. It's so like, like if I spend heaps of time on my phone in the day, I get to the end of the day and I'm like, what a waste of a
Where did
day
the
of my
day go?
life, man. Like,
Yeah,
not to say like every day should be super busy and like you need to be productive, but like
but it's not real downtime either.
there's no, exactly. And like there's better not productive things to be doing. And
Yeah.
like because it's so easy, I don't know, like it's so ingrained in me the habit of like if I put the jug on to boil and then I pick up my phone
Yeah.
and it's like I could just stand there
We should
or like
start
do something,
we should
you
start
know?
making videos, like taking videos instead of looking at videos
Yeah.
and not
I
put them
was
on Instagram.
watching I was watching a video about that recently. About how you gotta stop consuming, you gotta start creating. Well,
Yeah, that's a good
um,
idea. We should make a movie just out of clips that we've taken as a resistance to being on the
yeah,
social media.
cool. Um, yeah. Um, I need to go to the toilet.
Okay, I'll pause the thing.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Part 2.
Sorry. Go
Do
off,
you want
right?
to start? I feel like you've got a more of a history here.
Um, yeah, I've watched Gilmore Girls. I reckon I was thinking about it on my bike ride. I've probably watched the whole show like 10 times.
That's a lot.
And it was, I don't know, like when it was on TV when I was a kid, I used to watch it with Grace
Yeah,
because
same.
she was into it.
Yeah.
Um, and you, I think.
Yeah, well, I was watching it because it was Grace was watching it, I think. So
Yeah.
I didn't ever watch it like regularly. I just caught it when it was on. But I think that means that I know a fair bit about it.
Same, because I was little. Like when it started coming out, I would have been like 4, you
Didn't it
know?
start in 97?
I think it started in '01
Oh,
or 2000 or something. But like I was tiny. I watched it because Grace watched it and I wanted to hang out with my big sister, you know? And then I think I started watching it in high school because someone had it on their hard drive. And I was like, oh yeah, cute. But then it became a show that like if I was studying in uni, I'd just put it on in the background as like background noise. So I watched it so many times. And now it's something I return to as like a really comforting space, you know? Like I put on the pilot last night and I was like, oh, it's like coming home.
yeah. Well, I felt like that too, even though I don't have that much of an attachment to it. But it is
Mm.
like I think it's homely as a show anyway. Like it's
I
like
think
small
that's what
town.
they're going for. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like their
Um,
mother-daughter relationship, which is quite like insular.
yeah. Nah, I think it's a good show. I do think overall it is one of those shows that has not, I guess, like not aged well or just not lived up to what it was kind of labeled back then. Like I think it was like a real feminist show. It was like this young woman who's was a teen mother and her relationship with her daughter and like making their own way in the world. And now I'm like, oh, I guess so. Maybe for 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Well, yeah.
But yeah,
If they made it now,
um,
oh no, I'm just not even gonna say that.
don't even bother. Um, yeah, I love the pilot. It's got such a different vibe to the rest of even season one. Like, I think later on in the show, it becomes quite different from the first couple seasons. But the pilot is so cute. It's so like, I don't know,
I was
naive or something.
I was so impressed by the pilot.
Yeah.
Like the way it sets up. Well, I mean, because I know what it's about, and I know the characters already and shit. Like the way
Mm,
that it sets up all the like characters, and it sets up the town, sets up the like fraught relationship with the grandparents, or
mm,
with Lorelai's parents and stuff, and their relationship with each other. Like it really does a great job of setting up the whole arc of like at least the first part of the show while she's like in high school and shit. And like I don't know,
yeah.
I don't really remember what has happened like at when and stuff. I just remember the vibe of the show. So like
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen, but I really
Yeah, it
thought that
really
like the way like it set up their relationship, and then like Dean comes in and the dancing teacher lady, and what's his
almost
name?
catty.
What's the coffee shop guy's name? Luke.
Luke,
Bro, Luke's woke.
you mean now, like in real life?
No, like in his character is like way more woke than I knew, because I was too young when I was watching it. I don't mean woke in an ironic way, but he's like, he's like, do you have any idea what coffee does to your central nervous system?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. He's like a real health nut.
Yeah, and like when the grandma like makes Rory go play golf with the granddad.
Oh yeah.
And like then afterwards, he's like, "Do you have any idea how bad it is for the environment? All the chemicals they put on the golf course." Shit. I was
Yeah.
like, "Luke,
He's cool, eh?
he's really cool." And
Um,
like the way they set up like their flirting, like from the
I know.
very beginning, so
I
good.
know. Like first thing, eh?
Yeah,
It's like the first scene is them, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, which is cute.
Bro, I'm
Yeah, I
older than
know.
Lorelai's character.
Sorry?
I'm older than Lorelai now.
Ew. Oh, ew. Whoa.
How fucked up is that?
That's crazy. I was just saying to someone the other day, like, if I think about Gilmore Girls or when I rewatch parts of it, I am now like much older than Rory. I'm much closer in age to Lorelai. I still like relate to Rory. Like I watch it through the eyes of Rory, not through Lorelai. Still, because when I was a kid, I was like, oh,
Well, it's about both of them though. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know,
know.
but like when I rewatch it now, like I've watched it so many times, and now if I want to watch Gilmore Girls, it's because I want the feeling of like the town and the homely vibe of it.
Yeah,
But
like
if I
homework.
watch any now, yeah, exactly. I'll only watch the seasons that have Jess in it because I think Dean's a dick and I think Logan's a dick. Um,
Is Logan the
so like,
university boyfriend?
yeah, the rich boy.
Yeah, he sucks.
When
I remember.
Rory like loses her way and becomes like a rich bitch, like trust fund baby bitch. Anyway, we'll get there. um, like I'm choosing to watch a particular like era and relationship, and it's nothing to do with Lorelai. Like I don't care what's going on with Lorelai. I'm like, which boyfriend is Rory with? Lol. Um,
I kind of watch it on the whole because I don't really exactly relate to either of them.
yes,
But
that's fair enough.
but yeah, like the town is such a good setting, and like the smallness of it.
When they've done such a good job of establishing like secondary and background characters that feel like real but also real weird, and like Kirk. I don't know. I know at the beginning of the show Kirk
Kirk.
is a different guy.
The delivery guy. Is he the delivery guy?
Yeah, is he? And he's like, yeah, I think so.
And he looks
He's
like
got real long skinny face,
Anyway, I remember
and he's
Kirk.
real weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, like Kirk is such a good character, and like Miss Patty, who's in it from the very beginning,
Yeah.
and then like their neighbors,
Yeah.
the real short lady and the real tall guy, and like Luke and Suki as well. Like they're more main characters, but like they're just all such good characters.
Yeah.
I love the town.
I really thought that was what I meant about how they introduced everything in the pilot. Like,
Yeah,
the characters and even the story is already so like rich from the beginning. You can tell
I
that
think
there's so much potential for just stuff to happen and it not necessarily need to be anything. That's just the town, you know.
I know it's the setting is so perfect. Like there's so many episodes where I feel like not anything significant happens to any of them or like in their life. It's just like a day in the town, and you're like, I'm having so much fun. Having such a nice time.
I mean, it's the same dynamic that we talked about just before, with like directors having something to say and then not having something to say. Like you can just tell when someone's got something to say, when like the writers have something to say, or the director or the creator or whatever. It's like, because it's there, you can feel it trying to come out.
Yeah.
And then when they've said it, this is what Jump the Shark is about. When shit has said its thing and then it's just continuing on because it can, usually for money and popularity, then it's like Jump the Shark, and it's not saying anything anymore. It's like the aftermath of having said something.
I know, I think it's so like equally important to have something to say, but also to know when to stop. You know, shows like
Quit while you're eating.
I don't know if you've seen Fleabag, but that's like that. And like Flight of the Conchords, like they did 3 seasons.
Oh, did
They
they?
could have been, yeah. Like they could have been one of those shows that is doing really well and everybody loves it and it's like a cultural icon, and they could have just kept it going for like ever for the money, but they're like, that's enough. The story's done. Like, let's move on.
Yeah,
It's
we
like,
know, like
good.
Friends, like we both watched a bunch of Friends recently,
Oh,
and like the first few seasons are just fucking gold, and like no wonder it got so popular. But like,
yeah, totally.
but you know, I mean, like, if I was in Friends, I would probably want to keep going too, you know?
Yeah,
But
sure.
I don't know. Look, if I wonder how they feel about it now. Like the last 6 seasons, like, you know.
I still liked when I watched it recently. I watched season 5, which is when Chandler and Monica get together, because I think that's a really nice storyline.
Sure.
But then after that, I mean, even that season otherwise isn't that good. It's just that like that in itself is a nice storyline.
Is that the one where they
But
get
like
together? Or then when they get
the
married?
first episode of season 5 is just after Ross has said Rachel at his wedding to Emily.
See, I think that's the point where it goes downhill around then.
That's what I think. I think overall, not good, but I do like Chandler and Monica together. So that's why I started there, because I googled what are the best episode of Friends, and it said that episode, which actually it is a really good episode. It made me laugh a lot.
Oh man, him being all like neurotic and in the aftermath of that in the funeral.
He's being great.
Funeral to his love life.
He's being so crazy. It's like
schizophrenic Ross.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone needs to
but
make a
yeah, I
schizophrenic
think
Ross version of that episode, actually. Like him
I
being like,
reckon
it's fine, everything's fine. But it's just him.
it's so yeah, I think that is where it goes downhill. Because also you get to a point where you're like, I don't know, I feel like that is kind of maybe the beginning of Ross feeling like George Costanza, but in the Friends world. And it's like, I think George fits in the Seinfeld world because they're all kind of like that. They're all heightened, really insane characters, and their behavior is all so like wild and inexplicable. And you're like, nobody does shit like that.
Hmm.
But then Ross is like, I feel like not quite George level, but that sort of vibe in a Friends world where most of them are like more rational people or something.
Friends is pretty ridiculous too.
Yeah,
But I do feel
I
like he
just
sticks out
fucking
a little
hate
bit.
Ross. I just think he's such a cunt.
Bro, he's not that bad at the beginning. You should rewatch the first couple of seasons because, like,
Yeah, they
they're way
definitely.
more measured and, like, they make a
Yeah,
lot more sense and, like, they just become more and more caricatured over time. Like, all the characters.
yeah,
Like, Joey
totally.
really, like, he's not so ridiculous in the beginning and he's also younger. But,
Yeah.
like, towards the end, it's, like, cringe how he's still being this fucking idiot character and he's, like, nearly 40 or something.
I know. When it's like at the beginning, they're just like people. But yeah, like particularly with Ross, I feel like that season 5 where he says the wrong fucking name at the wedding, it's like, well, now his personality has just become he's bad at romantic relationships.
And he's
And they
obsessed with
just
Rachel.
keep, yeah, when they just keep that going on. And then, like, watching that season, like, he marries Rachel in Vegas. And then there's that whole arc where they're still married and he doesn't tell her because he doesn't want to be divorced 3 times. And it's like, this is the stupidest, like, most illogical, dumb sitcom storyline in the whole world. Like, none of it, there's no logic behind it. It's just stupid. And you just are like, ugh.
Like, this is partly why I want to rewrite or, you know, like, write my own Friends sequels. Like, I reckon it should pick up around this point, like season 4 or 5. And then
Yeah.
instead of getting more and more ridiculous, it should get more and more adult and, like,
Yeah.
serious. And, like, they start dealing with their fucking issues and start growing as people rather
I
than
know,
just
they
getting
just
older.
don't. Yeah. Just probably more like realistic or something, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, imagine if it became a serious drama and it was actually dealing with these issues that they all have as, like, kind of broken humans in New York.
Yeah.
And,
No,
like,
I mean, like, it's more realistic that they don't, you know? They're just so, like, stunted people
yeah, that's
living
true.
out the same, like, problems over and over again forever.
That's true, but I don't know if you've noticed, but my mission in life is to make sure people grow as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm not
And
saying it's
hold them
good
to it.
content. I'm saying that it's so true to life the older you get and people are just like doing the same thing, you know? Anyway.
Yeah, not looking at anyone in particular. But yeah, actually, the reason I wanted to watch Gilmore Girls is actually the same reason I wanted to rewatch Friends and also Harry Potter in a way. It's like it's probably like a me thing, like returning to stuff that is like nostalgic for me. But it's also this kind of like setting where you go back to a really familiar space. And you know, Friends is also really based in like the cafe. And it's got
Yeah.
this really familiar home ground, kind of.
Yeah.
And all the activity kind of revolves around it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe it's because that's just when I grew up though. But like I feel like I haven't got that from much of like anything I've seen recently.
Nah, that's definitely like a cultural thing at the moment though as well. You know, like they keep um you know, like Disney, I think a lot of it is so they can keep their copyright stuff, but like they keep remaking stuff and rebooting stuff like Gilmore Girls and like doing Friends and like Fresh Prince where they go back. Like it's something people want. Maybe in part because like the media coming out these days is not what we're looking for. But you know, like they're making another like Shrek movie and like all these movies that came out 15, 20 years ago that people still love. And they're like capitalizing on that like nostalgic
But it's
thing, you
missing the
know?
point, because like if you
I
really
know.
thought that Shrek was that good, then you should make something that good, not make Shrek again. We've had Shrek, you know,
Yes,
and like
I
I
know.
think
We've done it. I know. But it's this also, I don't know, it's the same thing I think as these like Harry Potter adults or like people who are so engaged and invested and like involved in something from their childhood that they can't find it somewhere else.
in their
They're
life.
not like, yeah, they're not like, oh, what is some other media or something in my real life that can make me feel this way or like emulate these things that were so important to me as a child. They're like, no, I love Harry Potter so much. I'm gonna make my whole house Harry Potter, you know? And it's like,
Yeah, well, I feel that way about anime too. Like I obviously got super into anime, but I was never like trying to replace my life with anime. I got a lot of
yeah,
inspiration from it, and like before that, my phase before that was philosophy, really. And
yeah,
so I was always looking at media through the lens of philosophy and being like, okay, I'm getting
mm,
this stimulation or this feeling. How can I find that in my life? And like
yeah,
it's given me some really good shit, you know, like that's partly why I
yeah,
got into martial arts and meditation and shit was because I
mm.
thought it was cool. And it gave me a
But
feeling of like inspiration and motivation.
I think that's like, I don't know, it's almost like a developmental stage that is being missed. Like, lol.
Zuia's diagnoses.
I just mean like, I think that's the way I engaged with media when I was like a kid and a teenager. Like, I would find a TV show that I loved so much, and like the idea of being in that world, like being a character in that world, was so attractive and like exciting that I'd
Yeah.
think about it all the time, and I was so into it. And I was thinking about it recently, and I was like, oh, maybe I don't engage with media like that anymore because media is not as good now. I'm like, no, actually, I think it's because like
I'm an adult.
I'm an adult now and I'm not 15 and yearning for some life that, like, yearning for a life where I actually have control over it. I'm not just like in high school every day and then like I go home to my mother's house where like I have to follow her rules, you know? It's sad. I don't know. Like, I don't now engage with media I love and imagine myself in that world. I imagine that in my world, you know? Like,
Yeah. I think it's kind of the blessing and the curse of media that like you get to see the even books, you know, you get to experience these worlds and these events or whatever experiences
yeah,
that you couldn't just experience as you right now.
yeah,
But like it doesn't mean that you can't ever experience them, but it means that it's gonna take work or effort or whatever
yeah,
to get your life to a point where you can experience them. So I think like having media and information come in like that is really important
mm,
because it opens up your perspective. But then if you
yeah,
just leave it at media, and like I think this about people who produce media too, like they're just like instead of trying to make the effort to build it into their real life experience, they just have the input of media and then the output of media. And it's like,
yeah,
I mean, that's not completely worthless, but I think it's a waste of time ultimately, because if you don't have the input of real experience from the world as well, then you're not really
Yeah.
adding anything to that flow of media.
Yeah.
And then it's just like heading towards the Matrix, basically.
When it's just recycling the same stuff, if your input is media and your output is media, then like it's just a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah, and I just think too that like convenience is a scam. And like media is the ultimate convenience, like getting experience without having to have experience.
yeah.
Like everything's like that. Like you can just buy whatever you want on Amazon or whatever. But like the more convenient it is to get something, the less meaning it has, I think. And that's not like glorifying
Yeah.
struggle, but like I do think that looking for where you do actually have limitation in your life and overcoming that limitation is probably where you're going to get the most fulfillment. And like that's why so many people are just unfulfilled.
Well, if you imagine it as like steps or whatever to like lead you forward in life, like things that are super easy are like a tiny little step up.
Yeah.
Like if you're stepping up a half a millimeter every week or like whatever, okay, maybe eventually you'll get up there. But like if something's hard and you have to like pull yourself up to it, you're getting further. Obviously.
Yeah, and the more you kind of practice doing that, then the easier it is to get further in less time as well. So like the more you take challenges now, the less challenge it is to take challenges later. So it's like
totally.
a kind of upward curve. Whereas I feel like the convenient way is kind of like a maybe even a downward curve, you know?
Lol. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all. I haven't
That's
really
it.
been consuming much this week, otherwise.
So we're gonna keep watching Gilmore Girls.
Oh,
Yeah.
I watched Long Legs. Yeah, we'll keep watching Gilmore Girls. This doesn't have to be part of the podcast, but I watched Long Legs, which is like a new horror thriller movie with Nicolas Cage in it.
Not Slender Man.
Yeah, kind of, but it was, I don't know, it was like, I don't know, I guess like spoiler alert or whatever, but I think the first half was really cool and real interesting, and he was real fucking weird and creepy. I was really into it. And then the second half was like, oh, it's Satan. It's just the devil and devil worship. And he's like, Hail Satan! And it's like, oh man, you could have
bit
done
tired.
something so cool with this. This is so 1800s of you.
I was thinking the first half is like he's all really creepy, and then the second half he gets like a 20-year-old wife.
Oh, lol.
But that's just real life.
That's just real life. Nah, I thought the first half was real cool. The first shot is like his face isn't in the shot. It's like cut off here because he's talking to a kid and he's like, oh, I've got my long legs on today. Maybe this is better. And like leans down so his face is in shot and it's like he's all fucked up looking. And it cuts away like too quick, you know? Like you don't get a good look at him. You get like a glimpse and you're like, ugh.
Is he like a pedo or
gross.
something?
Nah. He's this weird dude who makes dolls of little girls and puts like a like brain thing inside of the head and then delivers it to the family, and it is like it drives everyone insane and the dad kills the whole family from like the influence of this weird fucked up doll.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, like fine. I think the premise would have been cooler had it not been like I put a bit of myself in the doll, which is a bit of the devil, and then the devil talks to you, and it's like, oh, well, you could have just made it you. Or
Yeah.
like, I guess it's the same thing. It could have just been subtext that it was the devil, and if you think it's the devil, it's the devil, and if you aren't into that, it isn't that.
Yeah.
It's just a weird fucked up guy, you know? Like,
Totally.
I kind of felt like it could have gone the direction of just a weird fucked up man doing fucked up shit, or the
Yeah, and
direction
it's
of
not
like
even
something
supernatural
actually
or something.
supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it could have been either one, but you've kind of gone the middle road, which is like a bit supernatural, but very real world, or like known to the world, which is just Satan. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, spelling everything out. I feel like, especially horror, it's the
Yeah.
scariest thing is not knowing. And like, like
I know.
Psycho and stuff. Like the whole point of
Yeah.
that is like the whole technique that he developed was like not showing shit. And like it's just way scarier. The way you imagine it is always going to be scarier than seeing it.
Absolutely. When like you're already utilizing that in that first scene, which is like when it's just a shot of this, you're imagining what this person looks like. And then you're giving us the tiniest of glimpses so that our imagination is like filling it in itself. But then with the plot, you're like, devil.
Well, that's why like mythology has always been the kind of technology of social organization as well, because it just gives you the structure, really. It's not really about who the
Yeah.
characters are and what happens. It's about what they represent. And so you fill
Yeah.
that in with your imagination and with your life experience. And we're just losing that. Like all these I've been watching old Batmans as well, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
fucking cool. They're like wild. They're ridiculous. And like the new Batmans are all about making it realistic and like having this backstory about how like he's traumatized by bats when he's little, and then like he went to do
Lol.
training in China or whatever, and like the
Okay.
Joker is crazy because he has a fucked up mom and he didn't have a dad or whatever. Which is not
Okay, you go.
even true, because there's already a Joker backstory in the older films
Oh,
where he
yeah.
was like a businessman kind of guy, but kind of mob connections, like
Yeah.
doing black markety kind of shit as well. And then he gets
Okay.
betrayed and he falls into this like vat of chemicals that fucks him up. And then he gets like this, I can't remember why he gets this surgery. I think it's to fix his face, but then it's like stuck in a smile. And he has this like manic laughter that's something to do with the chemicals or some shit.
Right. I think two things. One, that's the problem I have with like a lot of Marvel shit, is they refuse to choose one path. They're like, no, it's actually that like it's a multiverse. So there's actually like 12 Spider-Men and they all have different backstories. And it's like, oh my god, just fucking pick a path and then like do that backstory for someone else or something. Like, why are they all Spider-Man? I don't care.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like why are
I
you
also
remaking
think,
Spider-Man in the first place?
yeah,
Like just you
I
made
know.
Spider-Man. Just let it be. It was fine. Like I enjoyed it when I was a kid. It was cool.
Yep.
Or just make less fucking movies. Like we don't need that many movies. Like why does there have to be a Marvel movie every year or every quarter or something?
I know. You know, Mom used to be like, oh, there used to be like maybe one movie would come out a week or a month or something, and it was always so exciting when it came out. And now it's like there's just always 1,000 things, and most of them are fucking stupid. But also that like giving every like antagonist a backstory to explain why they're bad is just so boring. Like I haven't watched it, but that movie Cruella, which is about Cruella de Vil, and it's like the backstory for her is that like her mum got run off a cliff top by Dalmatians or something, which is why she wants to kill the Dalmatians. And it's
That's
like
ridiculous, because like in the original story, it's not all about the Dalmatians. They're just one opportunity that crops up for her like evil clothing business or whatever.
When also it's a more powerful villain to just be like, nah, this bitch just wants a cool coat. She doesn't care what has to die to get her a coat she likes, you know? Like more evil. Like that's a worse antagonist than like, oh no, but like have sympathy. And like I know they just are making a lot of these movies to like make money and shit, but it's like, yeah, what's the fucking point?
I think that it's one thing I like about anime though, is that every bad guy has like a backstory that explains why they're like that. And there's also often like there's like really often someone starts off as a opponent and
Yeah.
then but like joins the team later on because it was kind of just like a misunderstanding or whatever. And that would
Yeah,
almost
same as
never
in the
happen.
Fast and Furious universe.
Oh, true. Yeah, true.
They keep collecting bad guys. It's amazing.
I've also noticed that, like, in the old Batmans, I know this is not all about Batman, but like, most of the villains come from some kind of like chemical damage. It's almost
Yeah.
like it's not justifying why they're bad, but like explaining it. Like
Yeah.
heaps of them are like chemical. Actually, I think most of them are kind of like chemical fuck ups, except maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze character, which is like I mean, it's kind of chemical. He accidentally like cryogenically froze himself, and then
Lol.
he's now reliant on like super cold temperatures to stay alive or something.
Lol.
And his whole vendetta is about how like his wife like was gonna die and they couldn't solve her thing, so he was cryogenically freezing her until a time where they could like fix her thing. But then he like
sad.
fell into it or shit.
Lol. That's so Futurama.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's also like just like a superhero thing though, because that's like Hulk and
Yeah.
Captain America and even half of like Wolverine's thing. Man, X-Men's way cooler than the rest of the Marvel bullshit, eh? Like the OG X-Men movies are way better.
Wolverine was already a mutant though,
Yes, but
but then he got
the
operated on.
metal, the
Yeah.
claws is additional.
That's a wild storyline, eh?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, but like these
But
new ones, it's like, let's make it all emotional. Let's make it like
I
a childhood
know
trauma. And it's like,
it's trauma. Yeah.
when it is, that's fine. That's great. But
Yeah.
like, why is everything about that? Like, not everything in the whole world is about fucking. I mean, well, maybe it is, but like, it doesn't have to be. We don't have to condone
Also,
it.
I think for a lot of these like movies and stuff, it is the like Marvel Cinematic Universification of everything, where it's like you can't just have a standalone movie that has an antagonist that you don't know what their backstory is, whatever. You have to then make the movie about the antagonist, and then make the movie about the grandparents of the protagonist, and then the cousin who was like adjacently related. It's like you can't just have one fucking movie anymore. Everything's about everything else, you know?
Yeah, bro.
Like,
In the old Batmans, the Joker. It turns out the Joker, before he was the Joker, before he got chemically fucked up, and he was just like in the mob or whatever. It was him who had killed Bruce Wayne's parents.
oh,
And then in the new Joker with Joaquin Phoenix or whatever,
yeah.
there's just like complete. Then there's like this other sub story about how his mum told him that Bruce Wayne's dad was his dad.
What?
And then he goes there to meet him and be like, hey, like, you're supposed to be my dad or whatever. And then he meets Bruce Wayne as a child. It's just
Oh.
like, I don't know, like,
Sorry.
yeah, I don't know. I don't
Mm.
understand why you would do that.
But also, I think it can be done really well. Like, you know, his that's not what it's called. What's it called? The Dark Knight. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The Joker with Heath Ledger. Like that one had the whole thing through it where the political guy is just a character in the story, and then at the end he gets all fucked up in the fire, and then you have been watching the backstory for a different Batman villain, but you don't know it unless you already know the comics. And it's like, that's cool. But like, I don't know, it's like you can involve it in the storyline that's happening in the world without it being like its own movie, you know?
Yeah. Like Wikipedia or something, like everything, there's like sub pages and like
Yeah.
all these different references and shit. It's like, I
When
mean, it's
even
a
like,
scientific attitude. It's like instead of going into the depths of something, it's just infinitely going into the breadth of it. And it's like it's completely lost touch with the meaning or the purpose of the story. It's just fleshing
yeah,
out and fleshing out. You know, it's like academia, really. Like
yeah,
it's like, you know, find an uncovered niche and like flesh it out.
yeah,
And it's like we're not gaining anything by just having more PhDs and more books on like these niche things, because like we don't have a grounding for the meaning.
when it's also like an indecisiveness. Like you're you're utilizing this one character to explore so many different things that it becomes pointless and watered down. Like the Joker having multiple backstories. And the fact that like in my like cognizant lifetime, we've already had 3 people playing the Joker and 3 people playing Spider-Man, or more than 3. Like, you don't need that. Like, make a decision about the storyline of the Joker, make it, make something else something else.
Well, it's the
It's
thing
so
of having
stupid.
something, like whether or not you have something to say as well. Because
Yeah,
like it's just all these people with nothing to say trying to say something. And then all they have to say is what they've seen, or like kind of just
yeah.
like gathering data and then arranging it.
Or maybe some of it is like it is someone who has something to say, but the like industry won't allow for it to be said by itself, you know? So they're like, well, if I insert it into the framework of the Joker, then it's like palatable to the people funding shit and like marketable.
Nah, I think people who really have something to say can like penetrate through, or like kind of overcome or subvert industry. But it
Yeah.
is also
Well,
not
like
being
that is,
encouraged.
yeah. I mean, that's what like a lot of indies are, you know?
Someone too, I think it was either like Denzel Washington or, you know, someone quite like long standing. It might have even been
Mm,
like Robert De Niro or something.
okay.
Anyway, was saying that like in the like 70s, 80s, 90s, movies were like about a personal perspective. They were like a
Yeah.
personal story, and they were about like kind of exploring this subjective world.
Mm,
And then in the last like 20 years, it's like flipped, and everything's about this like sociological perspective, like a society-wide
interesting.
perspective. And
Yeah.
that kind of also speaks to things being watered down and things being kind of spread out too much. Because
Yeah.
like, you know, everything's trying to cater to everyone. Everything's trying to cater to like this broad social group or demographic or whatever
Yeah.
that A doesn't exist, because like
Mm,
those are just kind of like things that are categorized from the outside or grouped together based on some kind of arbitrary structure.
mm.
But also like, you know, you don't have to all have the same perspective in order to enjoy or benefit from something. Like I can watch a movie, like I can watch Gilmore Girls, which is about a
Yeah.
mother and a single mother and a daughter in a small town in America. Nothing to do
Yeah.
with me. But it
It's
reflects,
actually really boring just to have your perspective shown to you on a screen. It's like,
well,
I
yeah.
know that that's like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to have a bit of validation, but it's often like if it's too similar, I'm not that interested. I'm looking for something else, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't watch a movie that was about like a married 33-year-old white guy in Japan building a house.
No, no.
But
Sounds boring, lol.
but also like, yeah, flattening everything out and like making it this like weird lowest common denominator kind of perspective just
Mm,
doesn't benefit anyone either. It like homogenizes people.
yeah, boring.
I mean, that's not what everything is, but like I relate to what it's saying, that like, early Tarantino movies are about like they're not about a single perspective in the characters, but they represent a perspective that is more
Mm,
like personal to, say, like Quentin Tarantino or something. And like older movies would have just been about like the experience of a character or of a certain space or something. Like Gilmore Girls is about this town and about this
yeah.
specific family in this specific town. It's not
Well,
about
it's just
like,
like,
you know, why this, identity issue should matter to everyone in the whole world.
yeah. But that's just like what we've been saying. The things used to have voice behind them and in them and what they're through. And now there isn't that like narrative perspective voice.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Well, on that note,
lol. Cool.
um, yeah, we just, for anyone who wants to know, we're gonna keep watching Gilmore Girls and unpacking it as a semi sequel to our Harry Potter and
Yeah, like alongside any other media we're consuming.
yes, and
Yes.
alongside our magazine, of which the first issue has recently come out. So check that out in the description.
Yep.
Links in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yes. Ew.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else.
Bro, like, share,
Yeah.
and subscribe is gonna become like a almost like a like amen or something. Like a thing that you have to say at the end of.
Bro, one of these kids, my next door neighbor kids, was like jumping on the trampoline recently, and she was just like chattering away to herself. But one of the things she was saying was like, "Thanks for watching." And it was like, "Oh no, what the fuck?"
Yeah,
So
bro.
small.
We've like kind of talked between ourselves a bunch about this kind of dynamic of kids being like influenced by the TV and shit.
Mm,
And
yeah,
like you hear like kids, I mean, I think especially kids who don't have enough exposure to other
yeah,
stuff, but like you're just like talking in this real quirky, like Americanized way. Man, it disturbs me.
yeah. It's real weird, eh? It's yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about next time, folks.
Okay, mate.
Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Yeah, and we're gonna keep developing our catchphrases as well, so stay tuned
Yeah.
for that. And
We'll have a sign off eventually.
we're gonna have prizes for people who pick up the catchphrases.
You stay classy, San Diego.
Yeah, you stay
Well,
classy, Wellington.
okay.
You stay humble and basic, Wellington.
Lol.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.